Welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show, where we shine light on the builders, makers, and entrepreneurs turning ideas into reality. My guest today is Austin Bonderer, a seasoned patent attorney with over 2 decades of experience and more than 600 US patents to his name. He has worked around the world helping innovators and entrepreneurs protect their ideas and turn innovations into opportunity. Austin, it's a great pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Aro.
Yeah, thank you so much, Austin. So, Austin, what was it like growing up for you?
It was just kind of normal stuff. I mean, it was, playing in the woods, getting in trouble in the water, playing with the alligators, I guess, that's kind of
Whoa.
what we did. Well,
Wow, amazing. So, what's more like, do you have more like a couple of jobs you did before you actually more like venture into attorney and start doing what you do?
so basically what it was actually during my childhood where my journey into this field got started was, um, so I grew up in Mississippi, in lower Mississippi, and it gets hot in the summertime. My dad's house almost burnt down. So
Oh,
that summer, he had me crawling up in the attic, wiring his new smoke system, the alarm system. So I thought to myself, there actually has to be a better way of doing this. For my senior thesis for engineering school, I developed this idea and built a prototype of a smoke detection system that used those wireless doorbells when they first came out. Basically, the idea was you could set them up as a mesh network. And I did this back in 1998. It's actually predated the commercial version that did come out eventually. And so during my thesis, part of the thesis was, hey, this is an invention. How does the patent process work? So I got interested in that. And then I went to work for the patent office when I graduated from college.
wow, wow, wow. Amazing, amazing. It's really, really fascinating story compared to at that in that age, you're already more like reasoning now, patenting what you actually get to do and working around it. It's really, really amazing. So before becoming a patent attorney, you work as a US patent examiner. What did that experience teach you about innovations and creativity?
Well, the great part about being a patent examiner starting off is that you get to review so many more patent applications and experience so many more technical patent issues that you would have while working there than you would if you went straight into being a patent attorney or a patent agent. So basically, what it was, I worked at the patent office for 5.5 years. And while I was working there, I went to law school at night to finish or to get the law degree. And then once I finished, then I started working on the other side, you know. So what I tell people is like working as a patent examiner, a lot of times, or it's kind of like grad school, if that's what you want to go do, because you learn so much. I mean, government, a lot of people do that for a lot of government agencies here anyway. Like they'll graduate law school, go work at the SEC, and then there'll be SEC attorneys on the outside. I have a good friend who worked for Department of Homeland Security and Trade, like the tariffs and stuff, and now he's, working on the outside.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. I think it's really inspiring is the fact that you're working here and you're going to law school at night and yeah, the regiment is really, really low and the fact that you're able to put that through it's really, really amazing and fascinating. Yeah. So you have traveled the world helping people protect their ideas. What is one culture or country that changed how you view invention?
Another, I mean, at the end of the day, like inventions are, I mean, it's very similar everywhere you go. The majority of my international work has been in China. I used to work for a company that was based out of there, and then they had a partnership with a university over there. And so I would work and try to talk to these inventors and these professors. And the interesting thing is that in that culture 20 years ago, things have changed a good bit, but it's like they didn't quite grasp the idea of an abstract idea being patentable. It was kind of like you saw the progression. Now, I'm not saying that China has the best patent system in the world by any means, but compared to what they were when I first started working over there, they do see the value in how it progresses uh their country and their people as a whole, because the more you're able to protect innovation, the more innovation you'll get. The more innovation you get, the faster it will push your country forward.
Wow, amazing. The more
Really?
innovations you get, the more you protect it, the more of them you get. It's really an amazing way of actually looking at it. So can you actually walk us through what exactly a patent is in a simple term.
At the end of the day, it's a government protected issued monopoly.
Protected issue monopoly. Amazing, amazing. So many of my listeners work with their hands, are builders, are technicians, and makers. Why should they care about patent?
Well, I mean, it's the only way you're ever going to be able to protect an abstract idea. So, I mean, let's take software or something, or you have people working with you. Once they leave, if they are able to take everything that they've learned at your office with you, then you're in trouble, right? Or it's the only way that, say that you have a good idea and you're starting to put it in the market. It's the only way you can kind of keep the dragons at bay. So, I mean, it's the only way you can fight back sometimes.
Wow, patent is the only way we can fight, especially when it comes to a whole lot of inventions that demand you working with a whole lot of persons. At the end of the day, they might leave. And if there is no more like a safety net, more like this governmental, yeah, it's definitely the idea is going to be still, and they might get to kind of reproduce it in the on another end, and definitely become another company being that is not being protected. Yeah, thank you for that, Austin. So, what are some example of everyday invention or tools that started with a simple patent ideas?
Well, I mean, there are tons of them. I mean, they kind of the most you'll see based like every now and then. I'd say most patents are very small incremental advancements, but sometimes you get like these small little things, and they'll come across my desk, and I'm like, I can't believe I never thought of this. Like, so cool, it's so smart, so simple. Why? But someone had to do it first, and these people do well. And a lot of I would say a lot of the inventors I work with are, some of them are what we call blue collar, which is, they're not the college educated. They are the tradesmen and the people that they're working with their hands all the time because guess what? They see the problems. And what they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So you need to, sometimes you need to have your ear to the ground, or you have to be there to see the problem before you can even fix.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. I think the fact that you just make reference of a whole lot of local entrepreneurs, they get to see this firsthand also. They come in contact with problem every now and then. And being that yeah, creativity is being spoiled up and they were able to kind of sort solutions to it owing to the problem they encounter every day. And the fact that they can actually patent it and own it, it's really, really pretty amazing and very fascinating. Also, uh for someone in trade or small business, how can they tell if their ideas is actually patentable?
Well, we never really truly know until we actually apply for it and we get a patent, right? Um, but I tell people that when they're debating on when should I talk to a patent attorney or when should I start investigating this, it just goes back to the thing that I said. Did you solve a problem? Was there something there that was preventing you from moving forward? You had to think about it. You had to come up with a solution. Hopefully, you came up with a good, valuable solution. And that's when you might want to consider, hey, do I have something that might be patentable?
Wow, amazing. I think this, it really still make me more curious about this idea of being patent and the fact that, yeah, because I think from this conversation, it's already more like be evident that a whole lot of our entrepreneurs might have solved a unique problem that every now and then they just give their ideas out, not knowing that that particular solutions they were able to kind of solve owing to why they are doing their work is something they could actually make things out from if they could actually own it. And this is really more like a pretty idea. So, what is the most common mistake people make when trying to patent an ideas on their own?
Okay, I tell them it's kind of like the Facebook effect. Everyone wants to show a picture of their baby on Facebook, and yeah, a picture. But inventors are so proud of their inventions. It's like, look at my baby. I want you to see my baby,
Yeah.
and I'm like, show anybody your baby. Don't tell anybody about your baby. Keep that quiet. Disclosure is what kills patents most of all when it comes to inventors and stuff like that. Independent inventors, small business people, because you know first, they sometimes they don't know what they have, which is understandable. You don't always know what you have. And, in a lot of countries, any public disclosure will preclude you from getting a patent. Now, the
Hmm.
United States is a little different in the fact that they will give you a year from your first public disclosure to file for a patent application. However, if you invented something, someone invents something 6 months after you, but they get to the patent office first, they win, you lose.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. I think this just shows the fact that as much as you're inventing things, just showing up more like as a baby should be kept, yes, a bit at the side rather than just showing up in the meantime. Because from histories, books are read, it just shows that a whole lot of those things can be stolen, can be stolen over time compared to instead of just going out to actually find out can this be patent other than showing up in social media with those particular things without even working in the background work on what whether it can actually more you can actually own it. Yeah, so for some people, some persons actually more like fear sharing their ideas out because they think someone will actually steal them. How can they protect them before filing?
Well, that's the point. You can talk to a patent attorney, or, you can have non-disclosure agreements. Now, the issue with non-disclosure agreements is that most of the time it needs to be a valid contract. And to be a valid contract, you have to give something for something. If you just had your buddy, excuse me, if you just had your buddy sign in, you wanted to tell them, you told them, and they signed an NDA, there's not a real binding contract there. So sometimes I'm like, you need to get a consultant. You pay them, you know, 10, $20, and you're like, here's the idea. What do you think about it? And that NDA is, I wanted you to consult on this and you wanted the $20, and therefore we have a valid contract. And two, a lot of times people don't actually read the NDA. They just say, I have an NDA, everything's covered, everything's going to be confidential forever. And I'm like, that's not what they say. You need to read, because there's responsibilities on your side as a disclosing party to make that contract valid, as well as responsibilities on their side. You can't just say, sign this, here you go, and that's that.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So, can you explain the difference between a provisional and non-provisional patent and when to use each?
So the provisional patent was, I mean, everyone thinks that this was just some amazing brainchild by the government to come up with, but it's not. So basically, it was just a band-aid that they threw on there. So the story I always tell is that, say that, so when we moved to this system, so the US used to be 17 years from the date of patent issue, but they wanted to standardize us with the world. So it's 20 years from the date of filing. But the issue is that, say a foreigner, well, I always use Japan. So say a Japanese inventor got to file inside Japan on year one, or what, year zero, or where you want to say. Then he gets an entire year before they have to file in the United States if they want to file in the United States. If they do that, then effectively they have 21 years from the date of the initial filing. So in the United States, they just said, okay, we'll just do this thing called provisional patent, give people an extra year if they want it. They'll file the patent application. We won't even look at it until they turn it into a non-provisional. Now, when it comes to most of my clients, I tell them, we're not going to bother with the provisional patent. There's only certain times you would use that, and they get pretty complicated why I would use it. One of them is if you know that you are going to improve the design within a year, because you can file as many provisionals as you want, but that year is up, you have to file that non-provisional. That deadline is hard. So that's one of the times. The other one is, hey, you've come up with this system and we just want to put a bunch of claims on file. And the thing is that you don't pay for claims in provisional, but they do get filed. So they're on file for the future forever. And then when we file the non-provisional, we typically just file 20 claims, because every claim after 20 costs more money.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. I think this just speaks volumes to having more like a consultant, so actually more like hold you by your hands to explain those things in details, especially for a particular thing that is being created that need the innovation part time on which and how to actually more like go about it. There's a whole lot to be done here, and most times this can look very, very clueless for, especially for blue collar entrepreneurs who are just curious about the operation parts and not necessarily more like, yeah, indeed is the book part and a whole lot of laws and every other system that's actually more like that needed at the background. So how long does patent process typically take, and what kind of patients should an eventually actually more like expect?
Well, I mean, it can last
Forgive
a
me.
very long time. So, I mean, typically what I say is, when we file a patent application, it takes 2 to 3 years before the patent office even looks at it.
Yeah,
If we
3
go
years.
the provisional route, you're looking even longer sometimes. But once you start arguing with an examiner, I've had arguments that go with examiners for years. Yeah, because they're people too. While they say there's only one patent office, one USPTO, there's actually like 8,500 of them, because every individual examiner is effectively their own little patent office. So you have to, yeah. And there are patent examiners out there who pride themselves on not allowing almost anything.
Wow, amazing. So patent can be expensive. What's your advice for small entrepreneurs who don't have big budgets but still want to protect?
That's the catch-22, especially when you're a small business owner, you don't know, and I tell my clients, look, patents are speculative. You might be better off putting that 10 grand in the stock market and see what happens, right? The money that you're spending on this stuff, you might be better off putting in the stock market and just say, okay, that was that. But sometimes it works out. And if you want to, build your business and stuff like that, and it's based upon some sort of intellectual property, then you might need to protect it. But, it is an expensive process. It's rarely a one and done type of thing. One patent generally begets two or three, depending on what you want to do. So that's kind of how it is. It's hard to tell a small business owner how to spend their budgets on these things. And, us, lawyers can, an entrepreneur comes up is like, I got this much money. I'm not saying I will, and I try my best not to, but things do cost money. But, if we did everything we
Yeah.
were supposed to do, you would have no money for anything else because we just lawyered you out of your business. And it's almost like we killed the goose before it even got to get out of the nest, because there are, especially in certain countries, especially there's so much regulation and stuff you want to be protected with that, I say we could just lawyer a small company to death in no time if we were to run wild. So you need to find an attorney and say, hey, look, this is where I'm at. What are the most important things we got to do first? And that comes with experience. But the patents cost what the patents cost. That's the unfortunate part for, small business.
Wow. You have worked with over now 690 patents. Was there one story that stood out to you as particularly inspiring and creative?
Well, there were some. Again, sometimes patents you just come across your desk like, wow, that's pretty cool. I remember one of the ones I worked on was I like sushi, and it was a sushi roll maker, and I'm like, oh wow, and we were able to get the patent. It was an inventor out of Australia, I think, or something like that. And then there's ones where I worked with this company, and they literally made a fabric that's see through that can act as a speaker. So it can literally move, still make sound, and it's using something called the electrical or thermoelectric effect. And that was pretty cool, those kind of things. So even the small ones to even the ones that probably cost millions of dollars in their innovation, budget, the research budget to get, to where it is, they all are kind of special in their own way.
Wow, amazing. So how do international patents work for people who sell or manufacture globally?
So that's more the application process. They generally use what's called the PCT, or the Patent Cooperation Treaty route, because every patent is local. So you need patent attorneys in every country that you want the patent to be covered in. But that takes time. So the Patent Cooperation Treaty application basically gives you 30 months from your first filing date to file in every country that you want to file in. There are some countries outside of it, but they're very few and probably wouldn't touch those anyway. But maybe you would. Maybe you would. But most of my clients just go, that's more than enough. In fact, I've rarely worked on anything. In fact, I don't think I've ever worked on anything where they filed in every single country that the PCT works with. But also, I haven't worked with pharmaceutical companies. I assume those are probably the ones that take the most advantage of that route. But then again, I'm just going from guessing.
What should small entrepreneurs know, especially those who are into manufacturing? What should they know, especially for those who actually want to work with an attorney like you?
Oh, you just got to find a good one. And I always say, and interview as many until you feel comfortable, because attorneys are like anybody else. There's good ones, there's bad ones. There's some that are really good, but you might not get along with. So at the end of the day, when I'm working with my clients, it's a lot of back and forth. Because at the end of the day, you're going to know your invention better than I ever will. And, when people are like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I write term papers for other people. So I'm like that guy Pollard, like, hey, pay me some money and I'll write your stuff for you. And that's about it. But, I hope I do a little better than that, but that's it. I'm trying to get your idea. onto paper. Because you have to help me with it. You have to do the reviews. You have to go through it and say, hey, you know what? I want you to talk a little more about this. I'm a little bit fuzzy about what you're trying to say here. So it is a team effort, and therefore you should, be comfortable with your patent attorney.
Wow, amazing. So, how has technology changed the way patents are filed and reviewed over the years?
I'm not sure. I assume the patent office is starting to employ some sort of AI and stuff when they're going through stuff. I mean, it's, and I've had, prospective clients come up to me and be like, hey, I had AI write this. Can you send it for me? I'm like, no, because one, honestly, I would equate it to foreign applications because sometimes we get foreign applications in, the English is broken, it's kind of hard to translate directly. And sometimes you end up sometimes spending more time trying to get that to work in English or for the US patent office than you would if you just wrote it yourself.
Mm,
So this is where we are with AI. It may get so good that, I might not have a job. But right, that's kind of where we're at with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what role does mindset play for investor and entrepreneurs when they face rejection or challenge during patent process?
Well, I mean, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. You are almost all, at least in the US, you're almost always guaranteed to get a rejection. And that can be because your boss wants to see that you've done some work. Because think of it being a patent examiner. You're like, well, I searched for the idea, but I never found it. I mean, your boss is typically going to be like, well, go search some more because it might or may not be out there, but you're trying to prove it negatives. When you're the examiner, you're like, I've looked all over, but I can't find it. And your boss is like, well, you didn't search hard enough. Go find it. Right. So if you show them, you have to show them some work. And so a lot of times you'll get a rejection that may just be very, come on. Now you're pushing the realm of possibilities. So that's what they do. And then, other times they might get you dead to rights. And, your prior art search didn't turn up something. They came up with something, or, which is kind of nice, you write your patent application. You might not have the same paradigm as they have. And they might have a perfectly valid paradigm given what you've written. So they help you clean it up by giving you a rejection sometimes. So it's actually a beneficial process. People shouldn't look at it as, I didn't get the patent. Now, they will have to pay the attorney to, respond to it, and it takes more time, but a lot of times you're gonna come up with a much better product than you would if you just got a first action issue.
Wow, amazing. So finally, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of invention and intellectual property?
I don't know, man. It's kinda like, like, we just saw a rocket the size of a skyscraper
Yeah.
land itself, and you're like, "Okay, well, I mean, I remember when planes were, not very good, and now they're, all this stuff." I mean, it's just gonna blow our mind, I believe, with what we're going to see.
How can my audience learn more about you, connect with you, and do business with you? And what
Yeah,
platform?
so just look up my last name, Bonderer Patents, and you can find my website. Call me, email me. I'm happy to talk about this stuff because most people I know are tired of hearing me talk about it. So I'll be happy to
Ama-
talk with you.
Amazing, amazing. Definitely, I'm going to add the link to the show notes so that my audience can easily reach out. Yeah, Austin, thank you for breaking down a complete topic into something anyone can understand. You have reminded us that innovation isn't just for lab. It starts in the garage, workshop, and on job sites where people solve real problem. For anyone looking to protect their next big idea, visit bondorapatent.com to connect with Austin. And so our listeners, keep building, keep creating, and keep believing that your ideas matters. This is the Aro Benaiah Show, and we will see you in the next episode. Once again, it's a pleasure having you on the show, Austin.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.